Chapter 9. What is your karma? What happened, Shiva? The little boy turned around to find his uncle standing behind him. The boy quickly wiped his eyes, for tears were a sign of weakness in Gwana men. The uncle smiled. He sat down next to Shiva and put his arm around his diminutive shoulder. They rested in silence for a while, letting the waters of the Manasarovar lake lap their feet. It was cold, but they didn't mind. "What ails you, my child?" asked the uncle. Shiva looked up. He had always wondered how a fierce warrior like his uncle always sported such a calm, understanding smile. "Mother told me that I shouldn't feel guilty about." The words stopped as tears choked Shiva. He could feel his brow throbbing once again. "About that poor woman?" asked the uncle. The boy nodded. "And what do you think?" "I don't know what to think anymore." "Yes, you do. Listen to your heart. What do you think?" Shiva's little hand kept fidgeting with his tiger skin skirt. "Mother think I couldn't have helped her, that I am too small, too young, too powerless. I would have achieved nothing. Instead of helping her, I would probably have just got myself injured. That is probably true. But does that matter?" The little boy looked up. His eyes narrowed, tears welling up. "No." The uncle smiled. "Think about it. If you had tried to help her, there is a chance that she would still have suffered. But there is also a chance, however small, that she may have escaped. But if you didn't even try, there was no chance for her, was there?" Shiva nodded. "What else did your mother tell you?" "That the woman didn't even try to fight back." "Yes, that may be true. And mother says that if the woman didn't try to fight, why would it be wrong for me to do the same?" That is an important point. The sin was being committed against her, and yet she was accepting it. They kept quiet for some time, staring at the setting sun. "So, even if the woman didn't fight back," said the uncle, "what do you think you should have done?" Yes, I think it doesn't matter if the woman didn't fight to protect herself. No matter what, I should have fought for her." "Why?" Shiva looked up. "Do you also think I should have been pragmatic? That it wasn't wrong to run away?" "What I think doesn't matter. I want to hear your interpretation. Why do you think it was wrong for you to run away?" Shiva looked down, fidgeting with his skirt. His brow was throbbing madly. "Because it feels wrong to me." The uncle smiled. "That is the answer. It feels wrong because what you did was against your karma. You don't have to live with the woman's karma. What she did was her choice. You have to live with your own karma." Shiva looked up. "It is your karma to fight evil. It doesn't matter if the people that evil is being committed against don't fight back. It doesn't matter if the entire world chooses to look the other way. Always remember this. You don't live with the consequences of other people's karma. You live with the consequences of your own." Shiva nodded slightly. "Does that hurt?" asked the uncle, pointing at the blackish red blotch on Shiva's brow, right between his eyes. Shiva pressed it hard. The pressure provided some relief. "No, but it burns. It burns a lot, especially when you are upset." Shiva nodded. The uncle reached into his coat and pulled out a small pouch. "This is a very precious medicine. I have carried it for a long time, and I feel you are the correct person to receive it." Shiva took the pouch. Opening it, he found a reddish-brown thick paste inside. Will it make the burn going away? The uncle smiled. It is set you on the path of your destiny. Shiva frowned, confused, pointing towards the gargantuan Himalayan extending beyond the Manasarovar. The uncle continued, my child, your destiny is much larger than these massive mountains, but in order to release it, you will have now crossed these very same massive mountains. The uncle didn't feel the need to explain anymore. He took some of the reddish-brown paste and applied it on Shiva's brows in a neat vertical line, up from between his eyes to his hairline. Shiva felt immediate relief as his brow cooled down. Then the uncle applied some paste around Shiva's throat. He took the remaining portion of the medicine and placed it in Shiva's right palm. Then he cut his finger slightly and dropped a little bit of blood into the paste, whispering, we will never forget your command, Lord Rudra. This is the blood oath of a Vayuputra. Shiva looked at his uncle and then down at his palm, which cradled the strange reddish brown paste mixed with his uncle's blood. Put it at the back of your mouth, said uncle, but doesn't swallow it. Massage it with your tongue till it gets absorbed. Shiva did that. Now you are ready. Let fate choose the time. Shiva didn't understand, but he felt the relief the medicine gave. Do you have any more of this medicine? I have given you all that I have, my child. The Vasudevs had the Naga medicine, asked a shocked Sati. She had intended to speak to Shiva about the disturbing conversation with her father in the morning. She was still stunned that a backup manufacturing facility for the Somras existed and that no one knew about it. But that was immediately forgotten on seeing Shiva's enraged face. I have been misled. They are probably in alliance with Nagas. Can't you trust anyone in this country? Something within Sati told her that the Vasudev couldn't be evil. It didn't add up. Shiva, are you probably jumping to conclusions? Glared Shiva. You know that. Know what? Ayurvedi said. That medicine could only be made in Nagalands. We know how the Brangas got it. They are being blackmailed. What is the explanation for the Vasudevs? They needed the Naga to build their temples. Sati kept quiet. Shiva walked up to the window and stared hard at the Vishwanath temple. For some strange reason, he could hear his inner voice repeating the same thought. Stay calm. Don't jump to conclusion. Shiva shook his head. I am sure the Vasudevs would have assumed that you would figure out where the medicine came from, said Sati. So, there can be only two explanations as to why the Vasudev gave it to you. Shiva turned around. Either they are stupid or they think the safe birth of your son is so important that they are willing to risk your anger. Shiva frowned. From what I have gathered from you, I don't think they are stupid, said Sati. That leaves us with only one choice. They think that if anything happened to our son, you would be so devastated that it would harm their cause against evil. Shiva chose silence. The Nagaland of the people sat on his chair in his personal chambers, right next to the window. He could hear the song of the choir that paraded the streets of Panchavadi. At this time of evening, once a week, the queen had wanted to ban the sad songs they sang. She despised them and defeatist. But the Naga Rajya Sabha, the elected Royal Council, had voted against her move, allowing the song to continue. The song triggered powerful emotions in the Naga, but he held them within. You were my world, my God, my creator, and yet you abandoned me. I didn't seek you, you called me, and yet you abandoned me. I honored you, lived your rules, colored myself in your colors, and yet you abandoned me. You hurt me, you deserved me, you failed in your duties, and yet I am the monster. Tell me, Lord, what can I? Disgusting song, said the queen, interrupting Naga's thoughts, shows our weakness and our attachments. Mousy, said the Naga as he rose, I didn't hear you come in. How could you? These nauseating songs drown out the world, drown out any positive thought. Vengeance is not a positive thought, Your Highness, smiled the Naga. Also the choir does sing happy songs as well. The queen waved her hand. I have something more important to discuss. Yes, Mousy. The queen took a deep breath. Did you meet the Vasudevs? The Naga narrowed his eyes. He was surprised that it had taken the queen so long to find out. Yes. Why? Asked the queen, barely retraining her temper. Your Highness, I believed we can use their help. They will never support us. They may not be our enemies, but they will never be our friends. I disagree. I think we have a common enemy. They will come to our side. Nonsense. The Vasudevs are fanatic purveyors of an ancient legend. Some foreigner with a blue throat is not going to save this country. But another foreigner with a bearded beard saved this country once, didn't he? Don't compare this tribal to the great Lord Rudra. This country is probably fated for destruction. All India has given us in pain and sorrow. Why should we care? Because whatever it may be, it is our country too. The queen groaned angrily. Tell me the real reason why you gave them our medicine. You know it is in short supply. We have to send the annual quota to the Brangas. I am not breaking my word. They are the only decent people in this wretched land. The only one who don't want to kill us all. The quota of the Brangas will not be affected. Your Highness, I have only given my personal share. In the holy name of Bhumi Devi, why? Have you suddenly started believing in the Nilkant too? What I believe doesn't matter, Your Highness. What matters is that the people of India believe. The queen stared hard at Naga. That is not the real reason. It is. Don't lie to me. The Naga kept quiet. You did it for that whale woman, stated the queen. The Naga was disturbed, but his voice remained calm. No, and at least you shouldn't speak of her that way, Your Highness. Why not? Because besides me, you are the only one who knows the truth. Sometimes I wish I didn't. It is too late for that now. The queen sniggered. It is true that the gods doesn't give all abilities to one person. You truly are your own worst enemy. Daksha was sitting on the ground. He had been shocked at the unscheduled appearance of Maharshi Bhrigu in Devagiri. The emperors of Meluha had not sought an audience with the sage. Bhrigu looked down hard at Daksha, deeply unhappy. You disobeyed a direct command, Your Highness. Daksha remained quiet, head bowed low. How did the Maharshi get to know? Only Sati, Veerini, and I had been in on the conversation. Is Veerini spying on me? Why is everyone against me? Why me? Brigu stared at Daksha, reading his thoughts. The sage always knew that Daksha was weak, but the emperor had never dared disobey a direct order. Furthermore, Brigu didn't really give all many orders. He was concerned about only one thing. On all other matters, he let Daksha do whatever he liked. You have been made emperor for a reason, said Brigu. Please don't make me question my judgment. Daksha kept quite scared. Brigu bent down and turned Daksha's face up. Did you also tell her the location, Your Highness? Daksha whispered softly. No, my lord. I swear. Don't lie to me. I swear, my lord. Brigu read Daksha's thoughts. He was satisfied. You are not to mention this to anyone. Is that clear? Daksha remained silent. Your Highness, said Brigu, his voice louder. Is that clear? Yes, my lord, said a scared Daksha, holding Brigu's feet. Shiva stood at the Asigat. The sails of the 5 gleaming Branga ships had been folded in all about one of the ship. On the ship anchored closest to port, the sails had been pulled up, creating a grand sight, much to the appreciative glance of the people present. They look good, devotees, said Shiva. Thank you, my lord. I can't believe that your tribe built all this in just 9 months. We Brangas can do anything, my lord. Shiva smiled. Adidviga, standing next to Shiva, spoke up. Devotees, are you sure the ship will sail? This ship here has all its sail open and the winds are strong, and yet it doesn't seem to be shaking the ship at all. Clearly the king did not know much about sailing. That is a very good point, Your Highness, said Devodas. But the ship is not moving because we don't want it sailing off without us. The sails have been aligned such that they are directly against the wind. Can you see the mainsail fluttering dramatically? Adidviga nodded. That means that the sail is laughing at us since it's not catching any wind. Shiva smiled, laughing. That is the term we use when the sail has been set wrong and is fluttering, my lord, said Devodas. Well, said Shiva, I will be serious then. We leave in 3 days for Branga. Make all the preparations. Sati was staring at the Ganga from her chamber window. She could see a small entourage of boats carrying King Adidviga across the river to his palace on the eastern banks. Why does he keep going there? Why does he only take his family? What are you thinking, Sati? Shiva was standing behind her. She embraced him. I am going to miss you. He pulled her face up, kissed her and smiled. That is not what you were thinking. Sati patted him lightly on his chest. You can read my mind as well. I wish I could. I wasn't thinking anything serious, just wondering why King Adidviga goes to the eastern palace so often. Even more oddly, he only takes his family there. Yes, even I have noticed that. I am sure he has some good reason. There is the superstition of the eastern banks being inauspicious, right? Sati shrugged. Is it fixed? You are leaving in 3 days? Yes. How long do you think you will be gone? I don't know. Hopefully not too long. I wish I could come. I know, but Karthik is simply not old enough for a voyage like this. Sati looked at Karthik, sleeping on his bed. He had grown so fast that he didn't fit in his crib anymore. He looks more and more like you. Shiva smiled. It is been just 6 months, but he looks like a 2-year-old. Sati had to take Shiva's word for it, being a Meluhan who did not leave us makeup. She had never seen a child younger than 16 years age. Maybe it is the blessing of the songstress, said Sati. Possible. Ayurvedi was surprised that he didn't fall sick the first time he took the songstress. That was surprising. But maybe that is simply because he is special boy. That he is. I have never seen a baby who could walk at 6 months. Sati smiled. He will make us proud. I am sure he will. Sati looked up and kissed Shiva again. Just find a path to the NÅGAS and come back to me soon. I certainly will, my love. The ships had been provisioned. They did not intend to wait at any port along the way. Speed was of the essence, much to the mortification of Parvadeshwar. A joint brigade of Suryavamshi and Chandravamshis had been created. It was difficult to carry more men in the 5 ships, but the saving grace was that the overall command remained with Drabagu. Shiva looked at the ships from the step of Asigat. Drabagu, as the commander, was on the lead craft, accompanied by his father Purvaga. The key companions of the Nilkant were stationed on the main vessel, which would sail in the safest zone, surrounded by the other 4 boats. Parvadeshwar, Bhagirath, Anandamayi, Ayurvedi, Nandi and Veerabhadra all stood at the balustrade of this ship. Shiva was surprised to find Uttanga too on the main ship. Anandamayi must have insisted, if there is one woman who can entice Parvadeshwar into breaking his vow of celibacy, it is her. My lord, said Aditya, interrupting Shiva's thoughts. The king of Kashi bent down to touch the Nilkant's feet. Shiva touched Aditya's head gently. Ayushman Bhav, with folded hands. Aditya whispered, I beg you to return to Kashi quickly. My lord, we are orphans without you. You don't need me, your highness. You don't really need anyone else. Have faith in the one person that loves you the most, yourself. Shiva turned toward a moist-eyed Sati, who was holding Karthik's hand as he stood by her side, wobbling slightly due to the strong winds. Karthik pointed up at Shiva and said, Baba. Shiva smiled and picked Karthik up. Baba, will be back soon. Karthik, don't give your mother too much trouble. Karthik pulled Shiva's hair and repeated, Baba. Shiva smiled even more broadly and kissed Karthik on his forehead. Then he held Karthik to his side and stepped forward to embrace Sati. Some Suryavamshi habits were too hard to break. Sati embraced Shiva lightly, for she was embraced of such public displays of affection. Shiva didn't let go. Sati's love for Shiva conquered her Suryavamshi reserve. She looked up and kissed Shiva. Come back soon. I will. Chapter 10. The Gates of Branga. The water were racing fast, flooding the small boat. Shiva tried desperately to control the vessel, fighting the dragging river with his oars, laboring to reach his friend. Brahaspati was struggling. Suddenly his eyes opened wide in surprise. What seemed like a rope came out of nowhere and bound itself to his legs. He started getting pulled in rapidly. Shiva, help. Please help me. Shiva was rowing hard, desperately so. Hold on. I am coming. Suddenly a massive 3-headed snake rose from the river. Shiva noticed the rope around Brahaspati, slithering up and around him, crushing him ruthlessly. It was the serpent. No. Shiva woke up with a start. He looked around in a daze. His brow was throbbing hard, his throat intolerably cold. Everyone was asleep. He could feel the ground beneath his sway as the ship rocked gently, in tune with the Ganga water. He walked up to the porthole of his cabin, letting the gentle breeze slow his heart rate down. He curled his fist and rested in against the ship wall. I will get him, Brahaspati. That snake will pay. It had been 2 weeks since Shiva's entourage had left Kashi, making good time since they were sailing downriver. They had just crossed the city of Magad. We should be reaching Branga in another 3 weeks, my lord, said Parvadeshwar. Shiva, who was staring upriver towards Kashi, turning around with a smile. Did you speak to Devodas? Yes. Where is the right now? At the masthead, my lord, trimming his sail to the prevailing wind. Obviously, he too wanted to get to Branga quickly. Shiva looked at Parvadeshwar. No, I don't think so. I think he yearns to play his role in my quest and then get back to his wife and daughter. He really misses them. As you miss Adi and Karthik, my lord. Shiva smiled and nodded, both of them leaning against the ship rail, looking at the tranquil Ganga. A school of dolphins emerged from the river and flew up into the air, falling gracefully back into the waters. They jumped up once again, continuing this handsome dance, this graceful symphony. Shiva looked at the dolphins. They always seemed happy and carefree. Carefree fish in a capricious river. Poetic, isn't it? Parvadeshwar smiled. Yes, my lord. Speaking of carefree and capricious, where is Anandamayi? I think the princess is with Uttanga, my lord. She keep going to the practice room with him. Perhaps they are perfecting some other dance moves. Parvadeshwar kept looking at the river. She does dance well, doesn't she? Asked Shiva. Yes, my lord. Exceptionally well, actually. That would be a fair comment to make, my lord. What do you think of Uttanga's dancing skills? Parvadeshwar looked at Shiva and then towards the river once again. I think there is scope for improvement, my lord, but I am sure Princess Anandamayi will teach him well. Shiva smiled at Parvadeshwar and shook his head. Yes, I am sure she will. The Nilkant and his entourage left for Branga a month back. Your Highness, said the Naga lord of the people to the queen. They were sitting in her private chambers. Good to see you. Focus once again. I will send a warning message to King Chandraketu. The Naga nodded. He was about to say something more, but kept silent. Instead, he looked out of the window from his position in Panchavadi. He could see the calm Godavari river in the distance and asked the queen, I would like your permission to go to Kashi. Why? Do you want to open trade relation with them? Asked the queen, highly tickled. She did not go with the Nilkant. The queen sniffed. Please, your highness, this is important to me. What do you hope to achieve, my child? Asked the queen. This is a foolhardy question. I want answers. That difference will that make? It will give me peace. The queen sighed. This quest will be your downfall. It will complete me, your highness. You are forgetting that you have duties towards your own people. I first have a duty into myself, Mausi. The queen shook her. Wait till the Rajya Sabha is over. I need you here to ensure that the motion to support the Brangas is not defeated. After that you can go. The Naga bent low and touched the queen's feet. Thank you, Mausi. But you will not go alone. I don't trust you to take care of yourself. I will come with you. The Naga smiled softly. Thank you. She was underage was just a week's distance from the gate of Branga. The ships had maintained a punishing schedule. Parvadeshar and Devodas had taken a clipper to the lead boat in order to confer with Drabagu about the protocol on reaching the gates. Parvadeshar made it very clear that the Lord Nilkanth did not want any bloodshed. Devodas was to complete the negotiations necessary in order to enter the restricted Branga territory. He felt it would be impossible to enter without showing the Nilkanth, for the Brangas too believed in the legend. Parvadeshar advised him to try and enter without having to resort to that. Devodas was left with Drabagu, so they could plan the flag display as well. While Parvadeshar returned to the central vessel, he wanted to take the Lord Mahadev's advice on how he would like the Branga border guards handled. Parvadeshar did not want to let his guard down, and yet, given the delicacy of the mission, it was imperative that the Brangas did not view the 5-ship fleet as a threat. His rovers tied the cutter to the main ship and he climbed up to the aft section. He was taken aback to see Anandamai there. She had her back to him, 6 knives in her hand. The standard target board at the wall had been removed and the expert board, much smaller in size, had been hung up there. Bhagirath and Uttanga were standing a short distance away. Uttanga turned towards Anandamai. Remember what I have taught you, princess. No breaks. A continuous shower of knives. Anandamai rolled her eyes. Yes, Guruji. I heard you the first time. I am not deaf. I am sorry, Your Highness. Now stand aside. Uttanga moved away. Parvadeshar, standing at the back, was dumbfounded by what he saw. Anandamai was standing correctly, like a trained warrior, with her feet slightly spread in a stable posture. Her right hand relaxed to her side, the left hand holding the 6 knives from the hilt, positioned close to her right shoulders. Her breathing light and calm, perfect. Then she raised her right hand and in a dramatically rapid action pulled the first knife from her left hand and threw. Almost simultaneously she reached for the second knife and released it, and then the third, fourth, fifth and sixth. Anandamai's movements were so flawless that Parvadeshar did not even see the target. He stood there admiring her action, his mouth open in awe. Then he heard Uttanga and Bhagirath applauding. He turned toward the board. Every knife had hit dead center, perfect. By the great Lord Ram, marveled Parvadeshar. Anandamai turned with a broad smile. Parva, when did you get here? Parvadeshar meanwhile had found something else to admire. He was staring at Anandamai's bare legs, or so it seemed. Anandamai shifted her weight, relaxing her hips to the side socially. See something you like, Parva? Parvadeshar whispered softly, pointing with a bit of wonder at the scabbard hanging by Anandamai's waist. That is a long sword. Anandamai's face fell. You really know how to sweep a woman back into her feet, don't you? Sorry, asked Parvadeshar. Anandamai just shook her head. But that is a long sword, said Parvadeshar. When did you learn to wield that? Wielding a sword that was significantly longer than a warrior's arm length was a rare skill, difficult to master. but those who mastered it dramatically improved their chances of a kill. Bhagirath and Uttanga had now walked up close. Bhagirath answered, Uttanga has been teaching her for the last month. General, she is a quick student. Parvadeshwar turned back to Anandamayi, bowed his head slightly. It would be my honor to duel with you, princess. Anandamayi raised her eyebrows. You want to duel with me? What the hell do you think you are trying to prove? I am not trying to prove anything, Your Highness, said Parvadeshwar, surprised at Anandamayi's belligerence. It would just be a pleasure to duel with you and test your skills. Test my skills? You think that is why I am learning the art of warfare? So that you can test me and prove yourself superior? I already know you are better. Don't exert yourself. Parvadeshwar breathed deeply, trying to control his rising temper. My lady, that is not what I was trying to imply. I was just... Anandamayi interrupted him. For a sharp man, you can be remarkably stupid sometimes, General. I just don't know what I was thinking. Bhagirath tried to step in. Listen, I don't think there is a need to. But Anandamayi had already turned and stormed off. The sun had just risen over the Ganga, tinting it a stunning orange. Sati was standing at her chamber window, looking down at the river. Karthik was playing in the back of Kritika. Sati turned to look at her friend and son. She smiled. Kritika is almost like a second mother to Karthik. My son is so lucky. Sati turned back toward the river. She noticed a movement. Peering harder, she saw what was going on and frowned. Emperor Aditya was off again to his mystery palace, apparently for yet another puja for the future of Kashi. She found this odd. The entire city of Kashi was celebrating Raksha Bandhan that day, a day when each sister ties a thread on her brother's wrist, seeking his protection in time of distress. This festival was celebrated in Maluha as well. The only difference in Swadeep was that the sisters also demanded gifts from their brothers, and the brothers had no choice but to oblige. Shouldn't he be spending his time in Kashi? In Maluha, women would come to tie a rakhi to the local governor, and it was his duty to offer protection. This had been clearly established by Lord Ram. Why is King Aditya not following this tradition and is instead going to his other palace? And why in Lord Ram's name is he carrying so many things? Are they part of some ritual to rid the eastern banks of bad faith, or are they gifts? What are you thinking, Your Highness? Sati turned around to find Kritika staring at her. I must find an answer to the mystery of this eastern palace. But nobody is allowed in there. You know that. The king even made some strange excuses to not take the Nilkanth there. I know, but something is not right. And why is the king taking so many gifts there today? I don't know, Your Highness. Sati turned toward Kritika. I am going there. Kritika stared at Sati in alarm. My lady, you cannot. There are lookouts at the palace heights. It is surrounded by walls. They will see any boat approaching. That is why I intended to swim across. Kritika was now in panic. The Ganga was too broad to swim across, my lady. I have been planning this for weeks. Kritika, I have practiced many times. There is a sandbank in the middle of the river where I can rest unseen. But how will you enter the palace? I can gaze a guess about the structural layout from the terrace of our chamber. The eastern palace is guarded heavily only at the entrance. I have only noticed that guards are not allowed into the main palace. There is a water drain at the far end of the palace. I can swim in through it without leaving anyone the wiser. But I am going. Take care of Karthik. If all goes well, I will be back by nightfall. The ships turned the last meander of the Ganga to emerge a short distance from the legendary gate of Branga. By the holy lake, whispered Shiva as Eve. Even the Meluhans, used to their own renowned engineering skill and celebrated monuments, were dumbstruck. The gates gleamed in the midday sun, having been built almost entirely of the newly discovered metal, iron. The barrier was spread across the river and is extended additionally into fort wall along the banks, which ran a further 100 kilometers inland. This was to prevent anyone from dismantling a smaller ship, carrying it across land and then reassembling it on the other side. There were no roads at the Branga border. The Ganga was the only way in, and anyone stupid enough to go deep into the jungle would probably be killed by wild animals and disease before meeting by Branga men. The barrier's base was a cage built on iron, which allowed the waters of the mighty Ganga to flow through, but preventing any person or large fish from swimming through underwater. The barrier had, oddly enough, 5 open spaces in between to allow 5 ships to sail through simultaneously. It seemed odd at first sight because it appeared that a fast cutter could just race through the gap between any Branga could attack it. That seems bizarre, said Bhagirath. Why build a barrier and then leave openly through it? Those aren't opening, Bhagirath, said Shiva. They are traps. Shiva pointed at a Branga ship that had just entered the gate. At the beginning of the opening was a deep pool of water with a base made of water-proofed teak, into which the ship had sailed in. There was a cleverly designed pump system that allowed the water of the Ganga to come into the pool. This raised the ship to the correct height, and then they saw the fearsome magic of the gate of Branga. 2 thick iron platforms rapidly extended from both sides of the pool onto the ship, fitting onto the grooves of the extended iron base at the bottom of the hull. The platform had rollers on its edge, which fit snugly within the canal of the iron base of the ship. Shiva looked at Parvadeshwar. So that is why devotees build the base at the bottom of our hulls. Parvadeshwar nodded in awe. The platforms extended with such rapid force. If he didn't have the iron base at the bottom, it would just crush the hull of our ship. Iron chains were being fitted onto the hooks on the hull of the ship. The chains were then attached to the strange-looking machine, which appeared to be like a medley of pulleys. But what animal did they use to make the platform move so fast? Asked Bhagirath. This force is beyond any animal's capability, even a herd of elephants. Shiva pointed to the Branga ship. The pulleys had started moving with a rapid force, extending the chains, pulling the vessel forward. The rollers on the platform permitted the ship to move with minimum friction, allowing it to maintain its amazing speed. My God, whispered Bhagirath again. Look at that. That animal can make the pulleys move so quickly. It is a machine, said Shiva. Devodas had told me about some accumulator machines which store the energy of various animals over hours and then release them in seconds. Bhagirath frowned. Look, said Shiva. A massive cylinder of rock was coming down rapidly. Next to it was another similar cylinder being slowly pushed up by pulleys as 20 bulls yoked to the machine gradually went around it in circles. The bulls are charging the machine with hours of labor, said Shiva. The massive rock is locked at a height. When the platform is to be extended or a ship pulled, they remove the lock on the rock. It comes crashing down the monumentum, releasing a tremendous force that propels the platforms. By the great Lord Indra, said Bhagirath, a simple design but so brilliant. Shiva nodded. He turned towards Branga office at the entry gate. Their ships had anchored close to the gate. Devodas had already stepped off to negotiate with the Branga office in charge. Why are you back so soon? You have enough medicines for a year. Devodas was shocked at the manner in which Major Uma was speaking. She was always strict but never rude. He had been delighted that she had been posted at the gates. Though he hadn't met her in years, they had been friends a long time back. He had thought he could use his friendship with her to gain easy passage into Branga. What is the matter, Uma? Asked Devodas. It is a major. Uma, I am on duty. I am sorry, Major. I meant no disrespect. I can't let you go back unless you give me a good reason. Why would I need a reason to enter my own country? This is not your country anymore. You choose to abandon it. Kashi is your land. Go back there. Major Uma, you know I had no choice. You know the risk to the life of my child in Branga. You think those who leave to Branga doesn't? You think we don't love our children, yet we choose to live in our own land? You suffer the consequences of your choice. Devodas raised. This was a getting nowhere. I have to meet the king on a matter of national importance. Uma narrowed her eyes. Really? I guess the king has some important business dealings with Kashi, right? Devodas breathed in deeply. Major Uma, it is very important that I meet the king. You must trust me. Unless you are carrying the queen of the NÅGAS itself on one of your ships, I can't see anything important enough to let you through. I am carrying someone far more important than the queen of the NÅGAS. Kashi has really improved your sense of humor, Devodas, sneered Uma. I suggested you turn back and shine your supreme light somewhere else. The snide pun on Kashi's name convinced Devodas that he was facing a changed Uma, an angry and bitter Uma, incapable of listening to reason. He had no choice. He had to get the Nilkanth. He knew Uma used to believe in the legend. I will come back with the person who is more important than the queen of NÅGAS herself, said Devodas, turning to leave. The small cutter had just docked at Branga office. Devodas aligned first, followed by Shiva, Parvadeshar, Bhagirath, Drabaku and Purvaga. Uma standing outside her office sighed. You really don't give up, do you? This is very important, Major Uma, said Devodas. Uma recognized Bhagirath. Is this the person? You think I should break the rules for the Prince of Ayodhya? He is the Prince of Sandeep, Major Uma. Don't forget that. We sent tribute to Ayodhya. So you are more loyal to Ayodhya as well now? How many times will you abandon Branga Major, in the name of Ayodhya, I respectfully ask you to let us pass, said Bhagirath, trying hard not to lose his temper. He knew the Nilkanth did not want any bloodshed. Our term of the Ashwamedh treaty were very clear prints. We send you a tribute annually, and Ayodhya never enters Branga. We have maintained our part of the agreement. The orders to me are to help you maintain your part of the bargain. Shiva stepped forward, if I may. Uma was at the end of her patience. She stepped forward and pushed Shiva. Get out of here, Uma. Devodas pulled out his sword. Bhagirath, Parvadeshar, Drabaku and Purvaga too drew out their swords instantly. I will kill your entire family for this blasphemy, swore Drabaku. Wait, said Shiva, his arms spread wide, stopping his men. Shiva turned towards Uma. She was staring at him, shocked. The Angavastram that he had wrapped around his body for warmth had come undone, revealing his Nilkanth, the professed blue throat. The Branga soldiers around Uma immediately went down on their knees, heads bowed in respect. Tears flooded their eyes. Uma continued to stare, her mouth half open. Shiva cleared his throat. I really need to pass through, Major Uma. May I request your cooperation? Uma's face turned mottled red. Where the hell have you been? Shiva frowned. Uma bent forward, tears in her eyes, banging her small fists on Shiva's well-bound chest. Where the hell have been? We have been waiting. We have been suffering. Where the hell have you been? Shiva tried to hold Uma to comfort her, but she sank down, holding Shiva's leg, wailing. Where the hell have you been? A concerned Devodas turned to another Branga friend also posted at the border. His friend whispered, last month Major Uma lost her only child to the plague. Her husband and she had conceived after years of trying. She was devastated. Devodas looking at Uma with empathy, understanding her aghast. He couldn't even begin to imagine what would happen to him if he lost his baby. Shiva, who had heard the entire conversation, quieted. He cradled Uma in the shelter of his arms, as though trying to give her his strength. Why didn't you come earlier? Uma kept crying, inconsolable. Chapter 11. The Misery of the Eastern Palace. Sati was resting on the sandbank in the middle of the Ganga. She kept low to avoid being seen from the eastern palace, her brown clothes an effective camouflage. She kept her breathing steady, rejuvenating her tired muscles. Reaching back, she again checked the hold on her sword and shield. It was secure on her back. She didn't want it slipping out into the Ganga, leaving her defenseless when she entered the palace. Reaching to her side, she pulled out a small pouch. She ate the fruit inside quickly. Once done, she tucked the empty pouch back, then slipped quietly back into the Ganga. A little while later, Sati crept gradually onto the eastern bank, far from the well-guarded guards of the palace. Where the king's boats had been anchored was a concealed drain. It was impossible to see from anywhere in Kashi or the Ganga, but the elevation of the palace, that was Sati's quarters for the duration of her visit to the city, the only building of that height in Kashi, allowed her to change upon it. She crept slowly into the foliage, suspecting the channel was behind it. She quietly slipped into the drain, swimming with powerful strokes toward the palace. The drain was surprisingly clean. Not too many people in the palace perhaps. Closer to the palace wall, the drain disappeared underground. Sati dived underwater. Metal bars protected drain opening near the palace premises. Sati pulled out a file from her pouch and started cutting away at the bar. She only went up for air. When her lungs started burning for oxygen, she dived back and continued filing the rusty old metal bars. With only 5 trips up for air, Sati was able to cut through 2 of the rods, space enough for her to slip through. Sati emerged along the western wall of the palace to find herself in a breathtaking garden. The area was completely deserted. Perhaps nobody expected an intruder from this end. While the ground was covered with lush green grass, flowers and trees appeared to have been allowed to go wild, giving the garden the appearance of a barely restrained forest, picturesque and natural. Sati hurried through the garden, careful not to step on any dried twig. She reached a side entrance and walked in. The eeriness of the palace was starting to get her. There was no sound, no servant toiling away, no sound of royalty making merry, no sound of birds in the garden, nothing. It was like she had stepped into a vacuum. She hurried through the corridors, not finding anyone to obstruct or challenge her. She went through the luxurious palace, which looked like it had never been lived in. Suddenly she heard the soft sound of laughter. She crept in that direction. The corridor opened into the main courtyard. Sati hid behind a pillar. She could see King Aditya sitting in the center of the throne. Standing next to him were his wife and son, 3 ancient-looking attendants who Sati had never seen before, stood next to them, holding puja thalis with all the necessary accoutrements for a ragi ceremony, including the sacred thread itself. Why is he getting his ragi tied here? And then a woman stepped forward. Sati's breathing stopped in horror. Naga. The entire crew on all 5 ships was crowded on the port and starboard side, watching the operation with awe and wonder. Shiva's men were completely astounded by the Branga gates. They had been the platform closed on their ship with frightening force. Then the hooks were secured to the chains. The Brangas, after the go-ahead from the respective ship captains, began towing the fleet. Shiva was standing aft, looking at the office at the gate entrance. Every Branga not working on the gate machinery was on his knees, paying obeisance to the Nilkant. But Shiva was staring at a broken woman curled up against the wall in a fetal position. She was still crying. Shiva had tears in his eyes. He knew Uma believed that fate had cheated her daughter. She believed that if the Nilkant had arrived a month earlier, her child would still be alive. But the Nilkant himself was not so sure. What could I have done? He continued to stare at Uma. Holy Lake, give me strength. I will fight this plague. The ground staff got the signal. They released the accumulator machine and the pulleys began turning, moving the ship rapidly forward. Seeing the vision of Uma retreating swiftly. Shiva whispered, I am sorry. Sati was stunned. A Naga woman with the king of Kashi. The Naga woman was actually two women in one body. The body was one from the chest down, but there were two set of shoulders focused to each other at the chest, each with a single arm dangling in either direction. The Naga had two heads, one body, two arms, four shoulders, and two heads. Lord Ram, what evil is this? Sati realized quickly that each head was fighting for control over their common body. One head seemed docile, wanting to come forward to tie the Rakhi on King's extended arm. The other head, playful and mischievous, intended on playing pranks on her brother, was pulling back. Maya, said Aditiga, stop playing pranks and tie the Rakhi on my breast. The mischievous head laughed and commanded the body to come forward to fulfill her brother's wish. Aditiga proudly displayed his Rakhi to his wife and son. Then he took some sweets from the plates held by the attendants and gave them to his sister. The attendant then came forward with a sword. Aditiga looked at the mischievous sister and gave the sword to her. Practice well, you are really improving. The attendant then gave a veena, a stringed musical instrument, to the king. Aditiga turned to the other sister and gave the instrument to her. I love to hear your play. The arms seemed to be in contrary as to which gift to hold. Now, don't you squabble over the gifts, dear sisters. I mean, for you to share them sensibly. Just then one of the attendants noticed Sati. She screamed out loud. Sati immediately drew her sword. Maya did as well, but the heads hadn't come to a consensus. She seemed to be hesitating. Ultimately, the docile head won. She ran behind her brother. Aditiga's wife and son stood rooted to their spot. Aditiga, however, was staring hard at Sati, eyes defiant, arm protectively drawn around his sister. Your Highness, said Sati, what is the meaning of this? I am only getting a Rakhi tied by my sister. My lady, said Aditiga, you are sheltering a Naga. You are hiding this from your people. This is wrong. She is my sister, my lady, but she is a Naga. I don't care. All I know is that she is my sister. I am sworn to protect her. But she should be in the Naga territory. Why should she be with those monsters? Lord Rudra would not have allowed this. Lord Rudra said, judge a person by his karma, not his appearance. Sati kept quiet, troubled. Maya suddenly stepped forward. The aggressive personality had come up front. The docile one seemed to be struggling to pull the body back. Let me go, screamed the aggressive one. The docile head capitulated. Maya moved forward and dropped her sword, not wanting to convey any threat. Why do you hate us? Said the Naga's aggressive head. Sati stood dumbfounded. I don't hate you. I was just talking about the rules to be followed. Really? So, rules made thousands of years back in a different land by people who don't know us or our circumstances will govern every aspect of our life. Sati kept silent. You think that is how Lord Ram would have liked it? Lord Ram ordered his followers to obey the rules. He also said rules are not an end to itself. They are made to create a just and stable society. But what if the rules themselves cause injustice? Then how do you follow Lord Ram? By following those rules or breaking them? Sati didn't have an answer. Brother has spoken a lot about "The Lord Nilkant and you," said Maya. "Aren't you supposed to be a Vikarma?" Sati stiffened. "I followed those rules as long as they were active." "And why was the Vikarma law changed?" "Shiva didn't change it for me. Believe what you want." "But the change in the law helped you as well, right?" Sati kept quiet, disturbed. Maya continued. "I have heard many tales about Nilkant. I will tell you why he changed it. The Vikarma law may have made sense 1,000 years back, but in this day and age, it was unfair. It was just a tool to oppress people one doesn't understand." Sati was about to say nothing, but kept quiet. "And who is more misunderstood today than a person with a deformity? Call us Naga, call us a monster, throw us to the south of the Narmada, where our presence will not trouble your lily-white lives." "So what you are saying is that all Nagas are paragons of virtue?" "We don't know, and we don't care. Why should we answer for the Nagas just because we were born deformed? Will you answer for any Suryavamshi who breaks the law?" Sati kept silent. "Isn't it punishment enough that we live alone in this God-forsaken place, for only 3 servants for company? That the only excitement in our lives is the periodic visit of our brother? How much more do you want to punish us? And will you kindly explain what we are being punished for?" The docile personality suddenly seemed to assert herself, and Maya abruptly moved back, hiding behind Aditya. Aditya bent low. "Please, Lady Sati, I beg you, please don't tell anyone." Sati remained quiet. "She is my sister," pleaded Aditya. "My father made me swear on her deathbed that I would protect her. I cannot break my pledge." Sati looked at Maya and then at Aditya. For the first time in her life, she was confronted with the viewpoint of a Naga, and she could see the unfairness that they faced. "I love her," said Aditya. "Please, I promise to keep quiet." "Will you swear in the name of Lord Ram?" "My lady," Sati frowned, "I am a Suryavanshi. Your Highness, we don't break our promises, and everything that we do is in the name of Lord Ram." As soon as the ship were through the gates, Drabagu ordered the sails up full mast. He directed the other ships to quickly fall into formation. They had just gone a short distance when they beheld the mighty Brahmaputra flowing down to marshal with the Ganga, and together form probably one of the largest freshwater bodies in the world. "By the great Lord Varun," said Drabagu in awe, remembering the god of water and seas, "that river is almost the big as an ocean." "Yes," said Devodas proudly. Turning to Purvaga, Drabagu said, "I wish you could see this, father. I have never seen a river so massive. I can see through your eyes, my son. Brahmaputra is the largest river in India." "Brigadier," said Devodas, "the only one with a masculine name." Drabagu thought about it for a moment. "You are right. I never thought of that. Every other river in India has a feminine name. Even the great Ganga that we sail on. Yes, we believe the Brahmaputra and Ganga are the father and mother of the Branga." Purvaga started. "Of course, that must be the source of the name of your main river and your kingdom. The Brahmaputra and Ganga conjugate to create Branga." "Interesting point, father," said Drabagu. He then turned to Devodas. "Is that true?" "Yes." The ship set sail down the Branga river to the capital city of kingdom. Brangaradei, literally the heart of Branga. Parvadeshar was standing alone at the stern, watching the lead boat. The system that Anandamayi had suggested of tying a line from the lead boat to the central boat was being followed. The general still marveled at the brilliant simplicity of this idea. General, Parvadeshar turned around to find Anandamayi standing behind him. Due to the cold, she had wrapped a long Angavastra around her. Your Highness, said Parvadeshar, I am sorry, I didn't hear you come. It is all right, said Anandamayi with a slight smile. I have soft feet. Parvadeshar nodded, about to say something, but he hesitated. What is it, General? Your Highness, said Parvadeshar, I meant no insult. When I asked you to duel with me in Meluha, it is a form of fellowship. Fellowship? You make our relationship sound so boring, General. Parvadeshar kept silent. Well, if you have called me a friend, said Anandamayi, perhaps you can answer a question. Of course. Why did you take the vow of lifelong celibacy? That is a long story, Your Highness. I have all the time in the world to hear you. More than 250 years ago, noblemen in Meluha voted for a change in Lord Ram's laws. What is wrong with that? I thought Lord Ram had said his laws can be changed for the purpose of justice. Yes, he did, but this particular change did not serve justice. You know about our Meka system of child management, right? Yes, said Anandamayi. How a mother could be expected to surrender her child without any hope of seeing him ever again was something she did not understand. But she didn't want to get into an argument with Parvadeshar. So, what change was made in it? The Meka system was relaxed so that the children of nobility would not be surrendered into the common pool. They would continue to be tracked separately and returned to their birth parents when they turned 16. About the children of common people, they were not a part of this relaxation. That is not fair. That is exactly what my grandfather, Lord Satyadhaj, thought. Nothing wrong with the relaxation itself, but one of Lord Ram's unchangeable rules was that the law should apply equally to everyone. You cannot have separate sets of rules for the nobility and the masses. That is wrong. I agree, but didn't your grandfather oppose this change? He did, but he was the only one opposing it, so the change still went through. That is sad. To protest against this corruption of Lord Ram's way, my grandfather vowed that neither he nor any of his adopted Meka descendant would never have birth children. Anandamayi wondered how gave Lord Satyadhaj the right to make a decision for all his descendants in perpetuity, but she didn't say anything. Parvadeshar's chest puffed up in pride, said, and I honor that vow to this day. Anandamayi sighed and turned toward the river bank. Watching the dense forest, Parvadeshar too turned to look at the Branga river, heavily laden with silt, flowing sluggishly on. It is strange how life works, said Anandamayi, without turning towards Parvadeshar. A good man rebelled against an injustice in a foreign land more than 250 years ago. Today, that very rebellion is causing me injustice. Parvadeshar turned to gaze at Anandamayi. He stared hard at her beautiful face, a soft smile on his lips. Then he shook his head and turned back towards the river. Chapter 12 The Heart of Branga. The Branga river carried too much water and silt to remain whole for long. It rapidly broke up into multiple distributaries, which spread their boundary across the land of Branga before disgorging themselves into the eastern sea, creating what was probably the largest river delta on earth. It was rumored that the land was so fertile with flood delivered silt and so bountiful in water that the farmers did not have to labor for their crops. All they had to do was fling the seeds and the rich soil did the rest. Branga Ridai lay on the main distributary of Branga river, the Padma. Shiva's fleet closed in on Branga Ridai a little over 2 weeks after crossing the gates of Branga. They had sailed through lands that were prosperous and wealthy, but there was an air of death, of pathos, which hung heavy. The walls of Branga Ridai spread over an area of 1,000 hectares, almost the size of Devagiri, while the city of Devagiri had been built on 3 platforms. Branga Ridai spread itself on naturally higher ground, around a kilometer inland from the Padma, as a safeguard against floods, surrounded by high walls. The capital stayed true to the Chandravamshi disdain for any long-term planning. The roads were laid out in a haphazard manner and not in the grid form of the Meluhan cities, but the streets were still broad and tree-lined. Vast quantities of Branga wealth assures that their buildings were superbly built and maintained, while their temples were lofty and grand. A large number of public monuments had been constructed over the countries. Stadia for performances, hall for celebrations, exquisite gardens, and a public bath. Despite their superb condition, these public buildings were rarely used. The repeated bouts of plague ensured that the Branga saw death every day. There was very little zest left for life. The river port of the city had multiple levels to allow for the vastly varying depth of the Padma at different times of the year. At this time of the year, the peak of water, the Padma was at its medium flow. Shiva and his entourage disembarked on the 5th level of the port. Shiva saw Parvadeshar, Drabagu, Purvaga and Devodas waiting for him on the comfortable concourse at this port level. It is a massive port, Purvagaji, said Shiva. I can sense it, my lord, smiled Purvaga. I think these Brangas may probably have the capability to be as efficient as the Meluhans. I don't think they care about efficiency, father, said Drabagu. I sense that the biggest challenge for them is to simply stay alive. Just then a short, rotund Branga man, wearing an impossibly large array of gold jewelry, came rushing down the steps. He saw Parvadeshar and went down on his knees, bringing his head down to his feet. My lord, you have come, we are saved. Parvadeshar bent down to pick up the man sternly. I am not the Nilkant. The Branga man looked up, confused. Parvadeshar pointed towards Shiva. Bow down to the true lord. The man rushed towards Shiva's feet. My apologies, my lord. Please don't punish Branga for my terrible mistake. Get up, my friend, smiled Shiva. How could you recognize me when you had never seen me before? The Branga stood up, tears flooding his eyes. Such humility, despite as much power. It could only be you, the great Mahadev. Don't embarrass me. What is your name? I am Bapiraj, Prime Minister of Branga. My lord, we have set up the welcoming party for you at ground level, where King Chandraketu waits. Please take me to your king. Vapiraj proudly climbed the last step to the ground level, followed by Shiva, Bhagirath, Parvadeshwar, Anandamayi, Ayurvadi, Devodas, Drabagu, Purvaga, Nandi and Veerabhadra followed. As soon as the Shiva ascended, loud conch shells were blown by a posse of Pandit, a large herd of elephants, decked in fine gold ornaments, standing a little further away, trumpeting loud enough to startle Purvaga. The splendidly carved stone pavilion at the ground level had been sheeted in gold plate to honor the Mahadev. It seemed as though almost the entire population, 4 lakh citizens of Branga Tridai, had gathered to receive the Neelkant. At the head was the poignant figure of King Chandraketu. He was a man of medium height with a bronzed complexion, high cheekbones and doe eyes. King Chandraketu's black hair was long like most Indians and had been neatly oiled and curled. He didn't have the muscular physique one expected as a Kshatriya. His lanky frame was clothed in a simple cream dhoti and angavastram. Despite ruling a kingdom with legendary hoards of gold and fabulous wealth, Chandraketu did not have a smidgen of gold on his body. His eyes had look of a defeated man struggling against fate. Chandraketu went down on his knees, his head touching the ground and his hands spread forward, as did every other Branga present. Ayushman Bhav, Your Highness, said Shiva, blessing King Chandraketu with a long life. Chandraketu looked up, still on his knees, his hands folded in a namaste, copious tears rolling down his eyes. I know I will live long now, my lord, and so will every Branga, for you have come. We must stop this senseless war, said Vasuki, looking around the Naga Rajyasabha. Many heads nodded in agreement. He was the descendant of one of the celebrated kings of Nagas in the past. His lineage earned him respect. But the war is over, said the queen. Mount Mandar has been destroyed. The secret is with us. Then why are we sending the medicine to Brangas? Asked Nishad. We don't need them anymore. Helping them only gives reasons to our enemies to keep hostilities alive. Is that how Nagas will work from now on? Asking the queen. Abandoning a friend when not needed? Subarna, whose face seemed to resemble that of a bird, spoke up. I agree with the queen. The Brangas were and are our allies. They are the only one who supported us. We must help them. But we are Nagas, said Astik. We have been punished for the sin of our previous birth. We must accept our faith and live out our lives in penance, and we should advise the Brangas to do the same. The queen bit her lip. Karkodak looked at her intensely. He knew his queen hated this defeatist attitude, but he also knew what Astik said was the majority's opinion. I agree, said Airavat, before looking at Suparna, and I wouldn't expect the people of Garuda to understand that. They are hungry for war all the time. That comment hurt the people of Garuda, or Nagas with the face of birds, had been the enemies of the rest of Nagas for long. They used to live in the fabled city of Nagapur, far to the east of Panchavadi, but still within a Dandak forest. The great lord of people had brokered peace many years back, and Subarna, their present leader, had joined the Rajya Sabha as a trusted aide of the queen. Her people now lived in Panchavadi. The queen spoke firmly. That is uncalled for, Lord Airavat. Please don't forget, Lady Subarna has brought the people of Garuda into the joint Naga family. We are all siblings now. Anyone who insults Lady Subarna shall incur my wrath. Airavat immediately backtracked. The queen's anger was legendary. Karkodak looked around with concern. Airavat had withdrawn, but the discussion was going nowhere. Would they be able to continue sending the medicine to the Brangas as the queen and promised? He looked at the lord of people, who rose to speak. Lords and ladies of the Sabha, please excuse me for the impertinence of speaking amongst you. Everybody turned to the lord of the people. While he was the youngest member of the Rajya Sabha, he was also the most respected. We are looking at this the wrong way. This is not about the war or our allies. This is about being true to the principles of Bhumi Devi. Everybody frowned. Bhumi Devi, a mysterious non-Naga lady who had come from the north in the ancient past and established the present way of life of the Nagas, was respected and honored as a goddess. To question Bhumi Devi's principles was sacrilegious. One of her clear guidelines was that a Naga must repay in turn for everything that he receives. This is the only way to clear our karma sins. Most Rajya Sabha members frowned. They didn't understand where the lord of the people was going with this. The queen, Karkodak, and Subarna, however, smiled softly. I would encourage you to look inside your pouches and see how many gold coins in there have the stamp of King Chandraketu. At least 3/4 of the gold in our kingdom has come from Branga. They have sent it as allied support, but let us recognize it for what it really is, advance payment for the medicine. The queen smiled at her nephew. It was his idea to tell King Chandraketu not to send plain gold ingots, but coins bearing his stamp, to remind the Nagas of what they received from Brangas. By my simple calculation, we have received enough gold to supply medicines for the next 30 years. If we are to honor Bhumi Devi's principles, I say we have no choice but to keep supplying medicine to them. The Rajya Sabha had no choice. How could they question Bhumi Devi's guidelines? The motion was passed. My lord, how do we stop the plague? Asked Chandraketu. Shiva, Chandraketu, Bhagirath, Parvadeshwar, Devodas and Bapiraj were in the king's private chambers in the Bringavidai palace. The route will be through the Nagas, your highness, said Shiva. I believe they are the cause of the trouble of India and our plague. I know that you know where they live. I need to find them. Chandraketu stiffened, his melancholic eyes shuddering for a bit. He then turned to Bapiraj. Please excuse us for a little while, Prime Minister. Bapiraj tried to argue, but Your Highness. The king narrowed his eyes and continued to stare at his prime minister. Bapiraj immediately left the chambers. Chandraketu went to a side wall, took off a ring from his forefinger and pressed it into an indentation. A small box sprang out of the wall with a soft click. The king picked up a parchment from it and walked back toward Shiva. My lord, said Chandraketu, this is a letter I received from Queen of Nagas just a few days back. Shiva scrawled softly. I beg you to hear it with an open mind, my lord, said Chandraketu, before lifting the parchment and reading aloud. My friend Chandraketu, my apologies for the delay in the delivery of this year's supply of the medicine. The troubles with my Rajya Sabha continue, but whatever the situation, the medicine will be delivered soon. What is my word? Also, I have been informed that a charlatan claiming to be the Nilkant is coming to your kingdom. I believe he wants to find a way to our land. All that he has to offer you are promises. What do you get from us is our medicine. What do you think will keep your people alive? Choose wisely. Chandraketu looked up at Shiva. It has a seal of the Naga queen. Shiva did not have an answer. Devodas spoke up. But, Your Highness, I think that the Nagas have cast this spell on us. The plague is their creation. Fight it we must. But to battle it properly, we have to attack the source, Panchavadi, the city of Nagas. Devodas even, if I agree with you, we cannot forget that what keeps us alive is their medicine. Until the plague is stopped, we cannot survive without Nagas. But they are your enemies, Your Highness, said Bhagirath. How can you not seek vengeance for the plague they have brought upon you? I am fighting every day to keep my people alive, Prince Bhagirath. Vengeance is a luxury I cannot afford. It is not about vengeance. It is about justice, said Parvadeshwar. No, General, said Chandraketu. It is not about vengeance or justice. It is only about one thing, keeping my people alive. I am not a fool. I do know that if I give you the route to Panchavadi, the Lord will attack it with a massive army. The Nagas will be destroyed, along with them their medicine too, thus demolishing the only means to Branga's survival. Unless you can guarantee me another supply source, I cannot tell you where Panchavadi lies. Shiva stared hard at Chandraketu, though he didn't like what he was hearing. He knew what the Branga king said was right. He had no choice. Chandraketu folded his hands together as though pleading, My lord, you are my leader, my god, my savior. I believe in your legend. I know you will set everything right. However, while my people may forget the details, I remember the tales of Lord Rudra. I remember that legend take time to fulfill their promise, and time is the only thing my people don't have. Shiva sighed. You are right, Your Highness. I cannot guarantee supply of medicine right now, and until I can, I have no right to demand this sacrifice of you. Devodas started to say something, but Shiva silenced him with a wave. I will take your leave, Your Highness, said Shiva. I need to think. Chandraketu fell at Shiva's feet. Please don't be angry with me, my lord. I have no choice. Shiva pulled Chandraketu up to his feet. I know. As Shiva turned to leave, his eyes fell upon the Naga queen's letter. He stiffened as he saw the seal at the bottom. It was an Om symbol, but not the standard one. At the meeting point of top and bottom curves of the Om were two serpent heads. The third curve surging out to the east, ending in a sharp serpent head, with its forked tongue struck out threateningly. Shiva growled softly. Is this Naga Queen seal? Yes, my lord, said Chandraketu. Can any Naga man use this seal? No, my lord, only the Queen can use it. Tell me the truth. Does any man use this seal? No, my lord, nobody. There is no truth. Your Highness, my lord, from what I know. Suddenly Chandraketu stopped. Of course, the lord of the people also used the seal. He is the only one in the history of Nagas beside the ruler who has been allowed to do so. Shiva snarled. The lord of the people? What is his name? I don't know, my lord. Shiva narrowed his eyes. I swear on my people, my lord, said Chandraketu. I don't know. All I know is that his formal title is the lord of the people. My lord, said Bhagirath, we have to insist with King Chandraketu. Bhagirath, Parvadeshwar and devotees were sitting in Shiva's private chambers in the Brangaridai palace. I agree, my lord, said devotees. No, said Shiva, Chandraketu has a point. We have to guarantee the supply of Naga medicine before we attack Panchavadi. But that is impossible, my lord, said Parvadeshwar. Only the Nagas have the medicine. The only way we can get the medicine is if we control Naga territories. And how can we attack the controlled the Naga territories if the Branga king does not tell us where Panchavadi is? Shiva turned to devotees. There must be another way to get the Naga medicine. There is a very bizarre one, my lord, said devotees. What? But it is the worst possible way, my lord. Let me be the judge of what? What is the way? There is a bandit in the forest beyond the Madhumati river. Madhumati, also a distributary of Branga, my lord, to our west, I see. It is rumored that this bandit knows how to make the Naga medicine. Apparently, he does it with the help of a secret plant he sources from beyond the Mahanadi river, which lies to the southwest. So, why does this bandit sell it? After all, a bandit should be interested in money. He is a strange bandit, my lord. It is rumored that he was born a Brahmin, but has long given up the path of knowledge for violence. Most of us believe he has serious psychological problems. He refuses to make money. He has a pathological hatred for Kshatriyas and kills any warriors who ventures into his territory. Even if the poor Kshatriya had just lost this way, and he refused to share the Naga medicine with anyone, even for untold amount of gold, using it only for his gang of criminals. Shiva frowned. How bizarre. He is a monster, my lord, even worse than the Nagas. It is rumored that he even beheaded his own mother. My God, yes, my lord. How do you reason with a madman like that? Is there any other way to get the Naga medicine? I don't think so. Then our choice is made. We must capture that bandit. What is the name of this bandit? Devotees asked Bhagirath. Parshuram. Parshuram, cried Parvadeshwar in shock. That is the name of 6th Lord Vishnu, who lived 1,000 years ago. I know, General, said Devotees, but trust me, this bandit does not have any of the qualities of the great 6th Lord Vishnu.